and the good old magic machine tells me that I'm live. How are we doing? Happy Friday night. How's it going? So, hopefully, I can run this stream without going nuts. I have an adverse reaction to hypocrisy and human nuttiness. So, this is going to be problematic. So, Pazio, folks, so we're on my RPG channel, and what happens is we're running this as a live stream, and I've got the elephant in the room. Blessings onto thee. Thank you for being here. Golden coin 100. So gold medal, bronze, gold medal, silver medal out. Blueberry Wolf Bridge. Myself, I'm in the live chat. Well, I'll skip myself, though I do deserve a break today. Should I give myself the silver? No. We'll just, whoo. Listen, folks, couple of things. So what's on the agenda? We know, I'm not talking about the Pinkerton cops coming to one individual YouTuber's house regarding Magic the Gathering cards. That's on a lot of people's minds in regards to Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and Magic the Gathering is adjacent to Dungeons and Dragons, and everyone's been just so recently upset about Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, Jonaside, what's going on, baby? Third in the live chat, bronze medal onto thee. Finally. This silliness. People getting upset about corporations. Folks, listen, doing corporate things that they do. Look, I have no idea what's going on with that particular story. I have a feeling that there are certain people that shouldn't comment about individual stories until, first of all, if they're not journalists and haven't done their actual research, because you don't want to go off half-cocked and end up saying things like, oh my God, I can't believe, if you're calling yourself the rules lawyer, you don't want to go and do something like just take one party's side of it and report it as pure fact. Because, hey, look, maybe that guy is telling 100% of the truth, but you can't just read off a statement by Watsy and say, oh no, they're lying, they're making it up, it's not what they said, it's just what the other guy said. You weren't there, dude, and you keep on calling yourself the rules lawyer, but you keep on not acting like a lawyer. There's so many jerks in this fucking community, it's not even funny. It's so many jokes in this community. The rules lawyer is not a lawyer. Pay attention to how much he uploads, okay? Pay attention to how long he's been running his YouTube channel and ask yourself, when did this guy have time to be a lawyer? I'm not saying he's never passed the bar exam. I'm not saying he's never been admitted to practice in any given state. I'm saying the notion that this guy has been employed as a lawyer for any, percentage of time and give it last 5-6 years is probably not true. His career is he's a YouTube guy, does role-playing games. That's fine. He just also happens to have one time gone to law school, graduated law school, and probably passed a bar exam. That's fantastic. God bless him. You want to listen to that guy waffle on about intellectual property law? Go for it. You've listened to worthless information. And I'm not saying the information you hear me say would be better just because I'm a practicing lawyer. I'm a practicing lawyer, but not in the area of intellectual property law. So when this stuff about intellectual property law came up, I said very little stuff. All I essentially said was, you see this guy and you see this guy talking? They've said that they're not intellectual property law attorneys. So you know what? Everything they're saying is worthless. And as an attorney, all I can tell you is that if they're not experts in the field, that there's no point in you listening to them on YouTube. And the only reason you're listening to them is because they're saying to you what you want to hear, which is Watsy are dirtbags and they're totally doing stupid things and they're totally going to lose, and everyone you love because they're against Watsy are going to win and are 100% right. So you fanboyed for them or whatever. If you were fanboying for them, and I just sitting there on the sidelines going, all this stuff is bullshit. It's got nothing to do with you. You should play the game, the role-playing games you like because you like them. You should judge a book on its merits. You should judge an author on its merits. And if a company does like crazy stuff, like you find out like the head of a company is like killing babies or sacrificing chickens in some horrible way or doing some other nuttiness that you just can't abide because he's doing he or she or they are doing something truly abhorrent or evil, then get the fuck out of town. But if someone's talking to you about like copyright or some obscure stuff, because remember, nothing happened. No books were burned, nothing, no product was remanded or reprimanded or taken back or revoked. No one was threatened, no one was sent, nothing happened. Wizards of the Coast gave a declarative statement that they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and there was an uproar, and the community spoke. And over the course of a short period of time, weeks, Wizards of the Coast, in absolute about face, reversed their decision to revoke the 1.0 license, right? They reversed that decision and, in fact, bootstrapped and bolstered that original license that everybody loved and everybody was upset and had gone crazy about them revoking. So that was saved. That decision was reversed. And in fact, they did more. WotC, in an attempt to appease people, made the current edition of Dungeons and Dragons, the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, Creative Commons, allowing unprecedented freedom for people to use the current product that wasn't even part of any of these current SRD open source things that people were already trying to protect. WotC, Wizards of the Coast, gave people more for free. And what did the community say? Too little, too late, fuck you, we don't want to hear anything. And why did they say that? Because the community was speaking. No, the community didn't speak it. The community was a flagrant, tiny minority, led and cheerleaded and gate-kept for by vested interested parties. People like that guy Glickner from Roll for Combat, who by his own admission, his company is the largest producer of third-party content for Pathfinder for Pazio. And all throughout this whole thing with WotC, this guy was saying that every once in a while, say, oh, I'm an affiliate for Pathfinder. Oh, I'm an affiliate for Pathfinder. I had never heard him say that he was the largest third-party producer for Pathfinder until this recent thing where he was started talking about this remaster. Now, look, I don't listen to the guy all the time, so I'm not, just because I haven't heard him say it doesn't mean that he hasn't said it before. The point that I'm trying to make in regards to that is these people largely had vested interests. They were coming at you and saying that this thing is for third-party developers, and the third-party developers are the things, the lifeblood, and they're you, and you're them, and you got to care so much, and what WotC is doing is so horrendous and so horrible. But then when WotC did things that would help these third-party companies, did people then say, okay, so now everything is coochie crunch and we can work with these guys again? No, they kept it going. Why? Because at that point, Pazio wanted their Orc license to be the new open game license. Kobold were saying that they had their own gaming system that they were going to come out with, that there was going to be a D&D 5 killer. You have Critical Role, Matt Mercer and Critical Role, who are coming out with Daggerheart because they're going their own friggin' way, going for the gold. So you see that no, it wasn't about the trying to save the community or save tabletop role playing or save anything or save Dungeons and Dragons from the evil corporate decisions of WotC. It was these third-party interests who were trying to basically get more of the pizza pie for them. Whether it was that motivation originally, when push came to shove, and it was, well, we can just now go back and say, okay, well, now we can keep on working with 5e because the problems that were presented or threatened have now been resolved. Oh, no, now we can't possibly do that. Why? Because Wizards of the Coast have shown their hands. Now we know that they're uncouth and unfair players. Okay, because of these things that they've done, because of these money-grubbing actions. And they would talk about the entire history. And bear in mind that when they would talk about the entire history, they would talk about this history of litigation. Wizards of the Coast does not have a history of being litigation, of suing tons of people. That was TSR, a preceding organization owned by run by Gary Gygax, a guy that everybody wants to deify, right? So the point overall is nobody is keeping anything straight. No one is maintaining a principled argument regarding socialism versus capitalism. You have people out here who are saying at one time there are these harsh, hardcore pro-Trump, anti-communist, anti-socialist, anti any sort of LGBT agenda in gaming at all, hardline guys. And then all of a sudden, they're the ones that are coming on their YouTube channels with this kind of quasi-socialist for the community. WotC should be taking these things, and WotC are making these decisions in regards to the virtual tabletop that are destroying the hobby fundamentally, and just in the name of corporate greed. Hold on. If you're a capitalist, what are you doing? Pointing fingers at capitalist greed. That's what WotC are supposed to do. They're beholden to the shareholders. They're not beholden to the gamers. And by the way, Gary Gygax was never beholden to the players. He was beholden to the shareholders. And he was beholden to the golden rule as well. He went to Hollywood and tried to sell out. Right? I said this in the last video, the short video that I made about this subject. When I was a little boy, the fantasy about Gary Gygax was that Gary Gygax was this grand wizard who knew all the answers and had, like Einstein, was able to create this amazing, flawless, impeccable, wonderful, amazing game, Dungeons and Dragons. And when he came out with Unearthed Arcana in 1985, it was the next grand revelation from the master, right? And the only reason I thought that was because the nerds who were ranked me in the hierarchy of nerd culture and the nerd domain that I resided in told me that, right? Gary Gygax is God. We like Gary Gygax. We think Gary Gygax is God. He's come out with this new book. We're going to buy it and we're going to say that it's amazing no matter what. Okay. Don't beat me up. Okay. That's what we do? Okay, that's what we're doing. You said it. So we did, and I did. You know what I mean? I drank the cool. Oh shit, the barbarian and motherfucking paladin. Oh crap, the druid. Let's gather those berries. You know what I mean? Only at midnight, silver knife, whatever. What the fuck? If it says so, let's do it. You know. But later on, you grow up and you realize that this book wasn't, put together with, art and finesse and, put together just because it was the necessary thing, the next thing that had to happen for the culture of gaming. And because Gary Gygax knew that was where after careful study, looking over the tables, in disguise, at the tournaments, listening to the gentle roll of the dice, the bones, you know what I mean? And, that young man there crying. What happened? I just can't do it. I roll, but the druid my druid just will never score enough points to change. My fear was to make it was the power be abused and not be lenient enough, but the druid must change. Free it, Gary. Let it flow. Let it flow there, but then no, the dragon, the chromatic. Change it. Move it around. You thought that was the fantasy, that was what was happening with guys like him and Kevin Simbita, and that these guys were like these geniuses that were motivated and passionate, like Michelangelo putting together these masterpieces. But then you get older and you hear the true life stories and you realize at a certain point in 1985, TSR were yet again about to go bankrupt because Gary Gygax and his buddies couldn't run a business for fucking shit, right? Because the parts of brains that work together, creative processes, oftentimes don't run the same way as the parts of brains that do good business. It doesn't make him, Hitler. It makes him, not necessarily the greatest businessman. So in 1985, at a certain point, about to go bankrupt yet again, they went around, they got hither and yon some ephemera from various pieces of Dragon magazine stuff lying around. They cobbled it together, and that became Unearthed Arcana. And we remember it as a vital evolution and change in the game system and the introduction of new classes that became part of our youth and our history of us evolving as gamers or whatever. But to Gary Gygax, it was holy shit, we fucking got that bill paid. fine. They read it and they proofread it and they edited it and shit. And then they cared. But it wasn't the fantasy that we thought it was. We now know the reality that these are corporations making corporate decisions to sell products that work and are good, but are not the divine writings of, scribes. They're just, it is what it is. And when we come, if I wrap this all up to the present moment, I see Token Study has joined us. Oh, I don't know. He says Token Study says some of the smartest people I've met are D&D fans. My prof mentioned his name as a footnote in a lecture. Hey, it is what it is. I do have to say this. Much like Rick and Morty, just because you play Dungeons and Dragons, many smart people play tabletop role-playing games, but just because you play a tabletop role-playing game doesn't mean that you're necessarily smart. Also, I think it needs to be said that things change and that we need to accept the fact that I believe that computer technology and video game technology has stripped past and removed the need for a lot of this tabletop role-playing game activity. I believe that a lot of my motivation to still be involved in it is based on nostalgia. And if I was, when, people talk about keeping this hobby going and sharing it with younger generations, I think that that's all well and good. I think that it's a forced share. I think the kids aren't organically interested in tabletop role-playing games. I think beyond, more sophisticated board games like Gloomhaven and whatever, I think kids have the access to the technology readily now to give them very, very, very experiences that we used to do this way because we did not have the technology. Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson came up with this, the basics of this game of tabletop role-playing games in 1973, 74. At a certain point, folks, when people are in virtual reality glasses and teledildonics and completely wired up, do you think that they're going to be taking time offline when they remove themselves from that virtual world and saying, oh, now that while I'm out of that virtual world where I can do this, that, and everything and forever, I'm going to now, at this point, take a book off a shelf and use my imagination to enter another virtual world, but just with my imagination? I would think that after leaving the virtual world for some sort of reality, that they would then be preoccupied with being in reality at that point. Don't you? Meaning that at a certain point, the stuff will be like historical. I think people will go like, oh, wow, it's like this is a book from 2010, and that was 200 years ago. They played, this was actually, you know what? This was actually, be careful. It's an old book. This was actually not just a book. It was actually a game. Yeah, game. Yes. People would actually, there would be rules for the creating of like a play or a drama or some sort of thing. They would create characters and pretend to be other people, and there would be rules for figuring out what happened and how. They would roll dice. Imagine that, right? But beyond that, and they might say like, would you like to roll dice? Roll the D20. You failed. Get out of my class. Do you know what I mean? But then, if we last that long, but that's going to be a very niche experience. And I don't think that, but that's the reality, right, folks? And I don't think that, and as we talk about ChatGPT, as we talk about these things like about generalized artificial intelligence maybe being right around the corner, there are people that are being hypocritical about their treatment of what's got a bee in my bonnet. These jerks, these forever no lays in the role playing game community, okay? These jackasses, okay? After giving Wizards of the Coast hell for no fucking reason, even though Wizards of the Coast gave them gave away. I watched, listen, excuse me. I watched as a corporation basically gave away what? How many millions of dollars worth of intellectual property for fucking free? And did anyone from this community say praise and hosannas besides me and say this is good, this is beautiful? No, because they all had all the big boys who and whatever who were doing 5e and then did the switch. We're going to sell out and then all of a sudden start playing Pathfinder. Like those guys are fantastic. Those guys already made the switch. And I mentioned Roll for Combat. There's already people over there. Pathfinder are now doing, dude. I'm so pissed off. I already did this earlier video. Whatever. This is ridiculous. Let me slow down. I'm already going to get upset. As I'm entering into the controversy, I'm getting upset. Here's Phaedrus. Phaedrus Live. Digital gaming is very rarely as immersive as TTRPG. Phaedrus, digital gaming is very rarely as immersive as TTRPG. You know, your brain is your brain. My brain is my brain. But I will also say this. Number one, your brain is your brain. My brain is my brain. I don't know how true that is for me all the time. I've definitely had immersive game experiences in both situations and conditions, okay? But I will say to you this, for how long? Right? Skyrim was preceded by Final Fantasy VII, right? Final Fantasy VII was preceded by Final Fantasy 1. Final Fantasy 1 was preceded by like what? Haunted House on Atari, 2600. You see what I'm saying? Like things get better. Now look, my predictions are predicated upon a teleological prediction of things getting better, right? Hey, I'm not going to sell my tabletop RPG books. I'm a book collector, right? Number one, I've established that I'm not a kid. I'm nostalgic. I can hold on to these things because they satisfy me personally. Number two, lights may turn off. But Phaedrus Live, it's predicted that if power goes out, that human civilization will last approximately 5 days, 5 to 7 days. Okay? So if technology, now look, that prediction could be wrong. I mean, there's a lot of fatalistic predictions. There's a lot of fatalistic models. There's been I remember, hearing all sorts of things like if man-made environmental change doesn't stop, the world will be uninhabitable by 1992. Like I've heard all sorts of we will run out of peak oil by 2003. Like I've heard all sorts of things. We've all heard things that turn out to be true, turn out not to be true, whatever. So there may be a model that the power goes out or computers don't improve where things maintain the way they are. I'll tell you this. If things continue the way that they have been throughout human history, I believe that it's inevitable that not only tabletop role-playing games, but actually written language will become extinct and outmoded. Because if digital information is being uploaded directly into our brains, why would we need, why would we have 2D representations of, words, numbers, and letters? But I might not know how, the language needs to work or how the coding needs to work. So maybe that wouldn't happen, but whatever. So let's leave that extended philosophical argument for aside and say we can agree to disagree. Tolkien studied archaic revival. Let's not get Here we go. It was Bill Maher with the archaic revival in the Maniac Mansion. Yahtzee. I love this. Here's Talking Study, like being like, I'm gonna say something. I want to comment something, so I'm gonna go tell that to Cyberpunk 2088 or whatever. I can look up the number and perfect the comment, but whatever, dude. Right? It's Friday with 2088. Just listen, dude. Just play it off like you meant. Oh, just when in doubt, always just go 69. Cyberpunk 2069, right? Clue, the immersive RPG, right? Now, let me ask you a question. Clue have managed to entertain generations and generations of people, in theory, right? There are all these games like Sorry, Clue, Life, Monopoly. Are these games actually any fun? I ask the same thing about Dungeons and Dragons all the time. My kids will be like, was this game fun? And I remember like playing and be like, was it? God, is it really? Sort of. Anyway, it's immersive, but there's like anxiety and it's like people get into fights. It was crazy. I remember like when I played, maybe the kids I played with, it was like all the time. I remember people get into fist fights. I don't know. Anyway, let's try and stay on track. Anyway, I think it's already too late. I blame Tolkien study. Anyway, studying Tolkien. And here's the other thing. And then we're going to add another thing in. I have to get a notepad. I don't fuck around. Okay. Now, Strip Clue. Now, there was a game. Now, talk about an immersive RPG. It was me, Tolkien studying elephant in the room in the basement. I thought we were playing Clue. Yeah, get one, sister. They're not coming back up. We can go home. I think they're done. You want to raid the fridge? Let's talk about our feelings, Kathy. It's 2005 all over again. Listen, folks. So it's not 2005 all over again, but it is 2003. So we're going to simplify things. We are at exactly 28 minutes, which means it's time for us to officially start the video. Which is great because I will be insulated. You know, I say things all the time on this channel that if witnessed by other people in the RPG, first of all, if there were other people in the TTRPG community, I mean, look at even the views on YouTube and you can see that it's an abortion. We're done. Folks, it's over. Game over. The actual subject of today's video. The 20-year nostalgia loop has been established and proven yet again. In 2023, I have come back hardcore to the study and the promulgation of this concept of the 20-year nostalgia loop and the nostalgia loops in general. I think that it's important that we look at them and understand them, because I think there's something here that bespeaks this kind of postmodern ennui that we're experiencing. This feeling of being trapped in the matrix, that we're seeing the same thing happen over and over again. It was in 2000 that I looked around, started to see on MTV, and started to get this overwhelming feeling, this feeling that I'd had before and I had seen people talk about, but this feeling of like nostalgia was getting too much, that everything, that nostalgia had become so much that when I looked on the TV, it was like everything that I was seeing, it was becoming painfully obvious, was just a repeat of an earlier time. And at that beginning stage, I developed the thought that everything was a repeat of what was happening from 20 years before. So in the year 2000, I was like, it's just like the 80s. It's just like 1980. And so I developed this concept of the 20-year nostalgia loop. And I started to have a notebook and go around, and I would, document these things. And you could see things like the Vietnam War movies. Look at all those Vietnam War movies, and you could see the Vietnam War movies begin and end on almost a perfect 20-25 year cycle from the time of the actual Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was really, it happened in a 10-year period. It really happened between like 1963, 64. I forget when like the Gulf of Tonkin incident happened. It ended in 1975. If you look, the golden era of those Vietnam movies were 85. By the time you get to 1995, 20 years after the Vietnam War ended, that's when you see the last ones. And then they go away. And then it wasn't until you see a movie called Tropic Thunder. Remember? That actually was able to kind of joke about making a kind of Vietnam War movie. And why was that? Because that was 20 years after it was like 2005, 2000 something, right? It was like 20 years after those Vietnam War movies had happened, right? So it's like first the nostalgia loop is able to regurgitate and process and Hollywoodize it and mediaize the experience. And then you can come back, and then 20 years after that, people remember, they don't remember the Vietnam War because the Vietnam War was like now 40 years ago. That's distant. The people that really experienced it are now, they're older, they're elderly, right? And the elderly are irrelevant. They're dead, or they're institutionalized, they're hospitalized, or they're been put away in various different ways, marginalized in various different ways as elderly people, right? Or they've repressed their memories. They were home and the hippies, and it's just didn't happen, right? But they can remember seeing and watching the movie Platoon a million times on cable TV, or watching Apocalypse Now a million times on cable TV, or watching Rambo, and he's not even in Vietnam, right? Rambo is recreating Vietnam, but in a national park, or then he goes to Afghanistan, right? Or he goes, or you see Chuck Norris, who gets to fight Vietnam again. You see him in the movies fighting Vietnam, but this time the white guy wins, right? Chuck Norris wins. He frees the POWs, right? It's not that America didn't go back. The U.S. government doesn't go back, but the U.S. government's proxy goes back. Hollywood sends a proxy goes back, right? We told you. We can't go back. We can't acknowledge that anything happened. So you're telling me my men put our lives on the line and you're just going to leave them there? That's right. I'm sorry, Jack. Tears me up inside, but it's all changed. It's a new era. They just want to forget the past. I can't forget. Jack, I'm telling you, don't do anything crazy. You don't need to worry about what I'm going to do. You've already forgotten. Jack, I'm telling you, don't do anything. I said, forget it. You've already forgotten me. Dun, 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 dun. Jack made up man is choo-choo. Fighting it all over again. I told you, Jack, man, you got to go back to America. The war is over. I give you one chance, man. Boom, boom. There's your one chance. Boom, boom, boom. That's it. He gets the guys back on the helicopter, and congratulations, America. We did win the Vietnam War. We did get those POWs back. Not those fat cats in Washington. They don't do shit. But you did. with your guns and your ammunition and your tickets and your pizza pie and your popcorn and your soda, but that didn't actually happen. But you get to experience it like it did. And then make believe becomes make believe becomes make believe. And then people don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. And you have enough of those cycles go by. And then you have forever wars, like the war in Iraq that didn't go on for 10 years, like Vietnam, but went on for so long that its own nostalgia loop movies were coming out, like Jarhead or The Mechanic or whatever, while there were still people fighting that war, even though the wars had been deregulated and the names were changed, the names of the forces were changed. They were no longer occupying forces. It was no longer a war. Mission accomplished, remember? Even though the body bags were still coming back, even though there were still horror stories, even though people were still getting PTSD and being traumatized and being disfigured and deformed for life and being, handicapped for life. No. And to say nothing about, the engendering of problems overseas. Regardless. Wow. Rambo 5, he also won Afghanistan. Remember, Rambo 5, if you see all the Rambo movies, when they bring them back, they come back on HBO, they come back on all these streaming services, they always omit Rambo 5. Why? Rambo 5, you have an amazing speech given by, remember the guy I just did the guy's talking to him? Remember the guy's like, he's tied up before Rambo rescues him? And he's telling the Russian captor, right? Because it was Afghanistan. Rambo 5 was you jackass Russians. You went to Afghanistan. You're morons. Anyway, here we go. I'm supposed to be talking about Pathfinder 2.5. Listen. Okay, Pazio, you think you won the war against WotC. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you why Monty History and drawing the line between good and evil is going to win this one. You get rid of alignment. Yeah, get rid of alignment. That'll be a good thing for the youth, for the kids. And why'd you do that? You know why you did that. Because you can't copyright a roll of the dice, right? But good versus evil and putting names on things and having gods that respond to that, and demons that respond to evil. Yeah, that's getting close to telling a real story, man. That's getting close to a truth that you could get sued for if you infringed on something. So some truths had to be buried, like the SRD. But you said that WotC was evil for going against that SRD, but all of a sudden, you can't wait to get rid of that SRD fast enough. So even though a whole bunch of innocent kids, because you said that you were better than WotC, a whole bunch of innocent kids bought your books. So much so that you reprinted a whole set of new ones just so you could sell out of those ones. And then you made the decision. All of a sudden, when I guess they weren't going to sell out another printing, that now was the time. You just had to do it. You just had to come up with a revision. Pathfinder 2.5. Now all those kids got to buy more books. Yeah, WotC were the evil ones. Yeah. And scene. But no one will, hey, listen. No one will see this. No, because no one will wade this deep into the 39 minutes. You know how many people will watch this video? I'll get it like a plenty hundred, views. And I know exactly what they'll be. There'll be people who like me who will be like, I'm gonna watch this one. He's gonna be talking about things I don't care about, but we love CW Chanter. We love this guy, so we're in it. And then they're gonna be like, and the shame is always like, because they'll be like, this is why I tell people to clip my shit, and then no one ever does. That's great. I was doing Alan Alda. But okay. I was actually doing the youth of the tabletop role-playing game community. Tolkien Study says there should be a Rambo Rocky collab. Don't give Sylvester Stallone any ideas. And by the way, the first Expendables movie is over 10 years old. Okay, so that's how much the nostalgia loop has been going around, right? The nostalgia loop cash cow that is Expendables, the Expendables franchise, that's ancient history. Kim Gordon is 70 today. Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth is 70 today. That's how fucking long ago we are, okay? Folks, okay, let me just, okay, the 20-year nostalgia loop. Let's get in it to quit it. Let's do this thing. In 2000, Wizards of the Coast, having bought TSR out, and then having procured the license to Dungeons and Dragons, came out with Dungeons and Dragons 3.0. 3.0 was produced by, they had bought TSR, they changed the name, they incorporated everything, but the people that came up with 3.0, including Monty Cook, right? Those guys were all holdovers from TSR. That's my understanding of it. They did 3.0 in 2000. In 2003, they came out with Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. And there was some upset. Because in previous iterations, people had kind of come to understand that there would be kind of a 10-year span between iterations. Now, granted, it had just been 2 iterations so far. There was first edition, second edition, and the third edition. So, but even so, it's like, it's 2 cycles, so that's not much of a pattern, but still, this is not a computer game. This is not like something that requires updates. This is like, and it's a fairly hefty investment because you get the core rule books, but then there's additional materials. There are, and you're encouraged to get those additional materials. And there's additional intellectual materials in the form of the articles that you would see in Dragon Magazine, including classes and stuff. And you're investing time in learning these games, these rule sets, and how to play them, how to use them, how to utilize these spells, the strategies of where and when to utilize these spells. So you're investing time and effort and energy into this. So to have things change in 2003, to have a 3.5 edition just after 3 years, there was consternation and upset. Now, we know that the next thing that happened was more consternation and upset because in 2008, Dungeons and Dragons came out with the 4th edition rule set. Oh, you already brought it out, I think. Yeah. The player's handbook over here. Oh man, did 4th edition upset a lot of people? Now, look, it's obvious to everybody that has seen 4th edition that 4th edition is designed in response to a changing world. You have to know and understand that it's a response from a tabletop role-playing game community to a world that is now a world that has embraced World of Warcraft, right? And online video games and MMORPGs and Diablo. You know, it's just that was the reality of the situation. And whether it was because of how they did it or whether it should have or shouldn't have been done, people again reacted. And there were other things involved with the 4th edition, including issues with the license, the gaming license. The 3rd and 3.5 editions had been utilizing an open gaming license that allowed third-party developers more freedom, a lot of freedom to work with them. And because of that, there was a lot of material available, especially for 3.5. There's the D20 rule set and D20, you know, compatible logo of the 2000 through 2000 15 10 era was just like ubiquitous. It was great. But when fourth edition changed that, there was reactions, and in reaction to that, Pathfinder happened. I have the soft cover here. I had the hardcover at home. I considered bringing, but I brought so many books to do this. I left it. I think it was like 2009 or 10 that the first edition of Pathfinder came out, and by its own admission, it's 3.5. It has a sign on it. It's their own sign. 3.5 OGL open game license compatible. It's Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. Yes, it's changed around. It's moved around. Things are adjusted and moved around to a degree. It's the Game Master's Guide, the Player's Manual, and like the Monster Manual all in one thing, right? On this first book, that's a feat onto itself. With all the stuff it's got in it, but it is, and it, by its own admission, was 3.5, and it only came out because fourth edition was moving in a different direction, and people still wanted to do 3.5. Pazio were a producer of third-party content. I believe they were also the producers of, I think it was the magazine content, if I remember correctly, and the CEO, Lisa Stevens, wanted to keep 3.5 material moving, so this guy, Jason Buhlman, was tasked with basically taking the 3.5 SRD and creating a game around it, taking the defluffed, the de-narrative SRD 3.5 and putting juice back, putting the toothpaste back in the tube, right? And he did. And here's Monty Cook with the foreword. I started in early 1997. Steve Winter, creative director of TSR, told a few of us designers and editors that we should start thinking about a new edition of the world's most popular role-playing game. 20-year nostalgia loop. He said in early 1997, he said they told him at TSR to start thinking about a new edition. The first product for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, I think, was the Monster Manual. That came out in 1977. So that's the 20-year nostalgia loop right there. 20-year nostalgia loop. First a copy of the Monster Manual, 77, told Monty Cook is told in 1997, 20 years later, to start working on another edition of it. So that would have been, he was told 20 years on to start working on another edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Today, the Pathfinder role-playing game carries on that same tradition, and this would be in 2000 and, basically 2000 and like 10, so that's like 10 years on from that. And this would be, so then Pathfinder is coming out. So the first edition of Pathfinder is 20 years on from the second edition of Dungeons and Dragons. But but listen to this. So 3.0 comes out in 2000, okay? Which is 20 years before 1980, so it's not exactly, but 3.0, because remember, that Monty Cook is told on the 20-year nostalgia loop, let's start working on it. It's not until like basically like the 25-year nostalgia loop that, so it's like not exact, it's like the 20-year nostalgia loop, like don't worry about the exact number. It's just hold on to it, okay? This is crazy. Don't you see how on this friggin' pattern it is? How exact this friggin' thing is? 1997, 20 years on from the first Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons product out, Monty Cook and the boys are told, we're going to do another one. So you know what I mean? Even though it's every 10 years, there was already second edition. No one gave a shit about the second edition, really. But everyone gave a shit about the third edition. The third edition was gangbusters. So Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was huge, right? 1977 Dungeons and Dragons through 1977, 85 Dungeons and Dragons, that and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, that was the big one. Second edition Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. Third edition Dungeons and Dragons, even though it was a totally different company, was gigantic. But that would have been the 20-year nostalgia loop for the first one. Pathfinder comes out because on 10 years, basically 10 years after this thing. So this is basically second edition Dungeons Dragons 3.0 because if you were a dungeon, if you have to I feel like if you knew the undergirding, here's the problem that's happening to me. I need a flow chart. And then you know what happens is I feel as though I haven't made the point, so that I keep on repeating it, but then I feel like repeating it is making it crazy. Whatever, I'll pay. I do speaking engagements. Yes, I will pay. If you pay me actual money, I will do a speaking engagement. Let's do the timeline again. 1977, first Advanced Dungeons and Dragons products start rolling out, beginning the first phase of Dungeons and Dragons being big. Okay, so let's call 77 through 85 the high point of Dungeons and Dragons and basic Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to go 75 to 85, right? Then if you go 20 years on from that, that would be 95 to 2005. And that would bring you, so then we would be looking for a big period of success for Dungeons and Dragons in that period. And we have this period of excitement with Monty Cook being told in 1997, we're going to do something. But remember, TSR goes bankrupt. So if TSR hadn't gone bankrupt, we don't know what would have happened if they had released in 1997, but they ended up coming up and being rescued in 2000. So they hit on 2000, and so that's right in the middle part. So let's just forget about maybe the Rangers screw us up. Fuck you. Okay, so 1980 to 2000 is big, and you have 3.0 coming out, and that's huge. Then you have 3.5. Then 2008, fourth edition comes out, and there's this revolution, which basically ends up with Pazio coming out and becoming, just because remember, Pazio, when they come out, Pathfinder is just Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 under a different name. This inadvertently becomes, on the 20-year nostalgia loop, to second edition. And remember, for a brief period of time, Pathfinder surpassed Dungeons and Dragons as the number one role-playing game because people were so pissed off at Dungeons and Dragons, they didn't want to play 4th edition. They still wanted to play 3.5, so they kept on playing 3.5. But 3.5 was no longer called 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. It was now called Pathfinder. So they could say that Pathfinder was the number one role-playing game in the world. The number one role-playing game in the world was still 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. It was just called Pathfinder. That's just a naming convention. That doesn't change the fucking game. It's just a naming fucking convention. So you get this weird doppelganger effect. But anyway, whatever success happens to Pathfinders is just the roll-on success with Dungeons & Dragons. But whatever. But you still have that 20-year nostalgia loop. You still have things happening right on the nostalgia loop. And it goes on like this. Then we get to 5th edition, but we don't need to worry about, because what we need to worry about with the timeline and the nostalgia loops has to do with Pathfinder. I just want to establish some evidentiary support for the 20-year nostalgia loop, and especially for the 20-year nostalgia loop being present in role-playing games and especially being present in this narrative, in this storyline regarding Pathfinder and its connection to 3.5 D&D. We know, number one, it is, first edition is 3.5 D&D. That was new edition. I'm not upset. Throw me some curveballs. It was new edition. It's new edition. People want to know what I'm talking about. So I just got to highlight this so people don't think that I'm talking to myself. Anyway. Pathfinder is 3.5. I have no doubt. Where to pick up the story? At the present moment? Remember, 2000, D&D 3.0, 2003, D&D 3.5, which is Pathfinder 1. Pathfinder, make the decision. Where did I put the book? I have a lot. I have no grievance with Pathfinder or Pazio. First edition, Pathfinder or Pazio. Why? Because Pathfinder first edition is 3.5 D&D. I love D&D 3.5. So I got Ultimate Combat. See, listen. It's got cool art. It's got new feats. I know feats. I understand feats. You know why I know and understand feats? Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. 3.5 compatible is another way of saying 3.5. Hey, I got this great game. It's called Monopoly Compatible. You know how you play? Let me teach you the rules. You ever play Monopoly? There you go. It's just got different pieces. Oh, so it's like one of those novelty sets? No. It's a whole different thing. It's not based on anyone else's IP. So it's just an alternative Monopoly set. No. Ooh, tough. Listen, buddy. It's inspired by the original Monopoly SRD. But what I did as a game designer is I started there and I tore it all down. You know, I said, let me ask myself a question. If I was an alien and I came here and I knew nothing about Monopoly, but everything about how to play it, how would I explain it to myself in the form of a black and white cookie? It was those sort of questions that I wanted to ask myself when ripping off Monopoly. By which I mean Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, which I love under any name. So I've got plenty of, and here's look. Third-party developers, love them. Hey, I support them. Listen, throw a 3.5 compatible thing on it. There you go. Let's see here on this. Sure, I could tell. If it was made before 2013, it's good. All right. Pathfinder 1.0 is Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. 2016 gets dicey. Let me check my playtest. My Pathfinder rulebook playtest only came out. Yeah, that's street legal. That's Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 right there. Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're good. We'll talk about it. That's Chomsky's thought. What would Martian think of human language? And why did I highlight your comment? I'll rip off Chomsky. They'll never get it. I swear to God, it was just, I channeled him. Brilliant minds think alike. Why'd you do it? Why'd you kill her? And in such a terrible, horrible way. Brilliant minds think alike. Why would I go? Listen, so what was it? 2000 and let's see, here we go. 2019. How you like that? 2019, Pathfinder come out with Pathfinder 2.0. I have the playtest rulebook from 2018. I didn't get it in 2018. I got it way after they already came. But it was like if you go on, you can go on Amazon to this day and you get the Pathfinder playtest. This book for like, I don't know, it's like $8 or something. It was like crazy because it's like it's an outdated playtest. It's like worth, it's like, you know what I mean? But you get to see what they're gonna do, what they're gonna go with, and it is what it is. But what else is it? If they started the playtest in 2018, that means they started this almost 20 years to the day, right? That Monty Cook had the conversation that was recorded in Pathfinder 1.0. Remember, from 1997? So 20 years, if the 20-year nostalgia loop doesn't have to be exactly 20 years. So if Dungeons & Dragons 3.0 comes out in 2000, Pathfinder 2nd edition is supposed to be, or is, on the 20-year nostalgia loop to that. Were they trying to catch that mojo? Did they? Remember, 3.0 was a completely different beast to first edition and second edition Dungeons & Dragons. And Pathfinder 2nd edition was there. We started off as Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, but now we are going to be, it's a D20 game, but 13th Age is not Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And Pathfinder isn't going to be either. You see? The 20-year nostalgia loop. But wait, there's more! Because Pathfinder 2nd edition, if we call that, it's Wizards of the Coast 3.0, right? What did Dungeons & Dragons do in 2003? It came out with the 3.5 edition SNSRD that simultaneously pissed people off because everyone said, why are we coming out with this thing? Why are you coming out with this new edition? It's just rules revision. Do we really need the rules revision right now? You're asking us to buy these 3 almost core identical books to the books that came before. Why? It's just a money grab. It's just a money grab. It's just a money grab. Says the forums. Go to the Wayback Machine. These conversations are preserved. Go to Wikipedia. They will comment. Go to there are books written about the history of role-playing games, and they record these things. So here we are, 20 years to the moon. And the Pathfinder game that was set up on the 20-year nostalgia loop to the original game, the second edition was set up on the 20-year nostalgia loop to Dungeons & Dragons 3.0, 2019 to 2000, fudge a year. And now they're doing the Remaster project, which in description, in definition, in execution is absolutely 100%, including the inclusion of the ORC license that is an open source license analogous to what 3.5 was and is intended to do today what the 3.5 license was intended to do and did do back in the day. They are hitting the 20-year nostalgia loop on the money. there's a lot of historical precedences. So I'm not saying it's by design, but I'm saying it's here. Like a scientist saying to you, look, fractals are everywhere. They're in a leaf. I'm telling you, fractals are everywhere. This 20-year nostalgia loop is a repeating pattern. Look at the Wikipedia page. You don't have to be a paranoid schizophrenic. You don't have to be on meth to see this. To see this pattern is there. Pathfinder, 2019, almost 20 years to Dungeons & Dragons 3.0, 3.5 in 2003. And here we are in 2023, and Pathfinder, the remaster project, including the Orc license, is 100% analogous to 3.5. But what, so there, that's established. That's my argument. If you buy it, you buy it. If you accept it, you accept it. And if you say fuck you to me, you say fuck you to me. Moving on. Second part of the conversation. There you go. I got 4 people watching me live. Feel free to share this on social media. And folks, this conversation is obviously branching on and gone on for an hour. Okay, so far. And I know I've covered multiple segments, right? I'm telling people, like an open game license, I'm telling you, we have an open game license here. You can take any portion of this product. You can take any portion of my performance, any portion of this audio-visual presentation, and take it, clip it, do whatever you want with it. If you do something creative with it, please send me a link so I can enjoy it too. You can mock me. You can editorialize me. You can say, this is why I refute this man's beliefs and sentence structure, whatever. But let's get involved in the conversation, but please, but just, honor me, but whatever. The next part of the conversation. The tabletop role-playing game community is full of people that do not have principled arguments, do not maintain their arguments down the line, okay, and are hypocrites. You are fucking hypocrites, okay? Exactly. There's no action in the live chat either. Anyway, check this out. If Wizards of the Coast did their 3.5 maneuver in 2003 today, under these conditions with the Pinkerton cop hole situation going on, people would be going jack shit fucking crazy nuts. But Pathfinder did it, and no one's saying shit. And in fact, people are saying basically it's awesome and they're excited about what they're doing, even though what they're doing is jack shit nothing. And that is some bullshit. Because 100% pragmatic. This is why I refute his beliefs, the shirt choice today. Look, I was at a children's birthday party today. My outfit was completely appropriate. This is my we're hanging out with kids today shirt. I've known wizards, some of them grand. Okay, we're not backing out of that joke. Okay, here we go. Pathfinder 2.0. Fuck you, whatever. This 2.5 crap. This is when I was thinking about making the video today, I didn't know whether to play their video, which was sad, or whether or not to play a video by another organization that were I'm happy. You know what? The anger has left me. You know what they're doing? Okay. Now here's another thing. I don't know what this means. I ordered and went through a phase of getting and procuring a ton of fourth edition material. There was a book that had gone missing, and it was an issue between me and but I couldn't get a refund for or whatever, but it was just like I just had abandoned it to the fates. With a publication year of 2010 and with an absolutely gorgeous model, Monster Manual 3. Now, I believe all the monster manuals for the fourth edition, I think they all have like this like commando and like amazeballs like Lido monster, or sometimes they do. Maybe this one does. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe not. Who knows? But so anyway, going back to it. So I was all upset. I was like, so I'm going to tell you another thing. So they're all Pathfinder doing. They didn't need to do this 2.5 edition at all. This is why I'm upset. They didn't need to do this 2.5 edition at all. They didn't need to do this 2.5 edition at all. Dungeons and Dragons had done an about face and had released everything. Fifth edition was in Creative Commons. They just want to own their thing, and it's whatever. Oh, look at this. For all the desert rock fans, desert metal fans, Spawn of Caius. Love it. Like a cancer in the earth, Spawn of Caius. Even though that's not really Caius, that's like I can't do Caius because I can't do a Josh Homme. Like you need to actually like be able to sing and actually have like some groove to do like Caius. They ended up being like that's like Caius eventually like that's like Josh Homme was in Caius, and then he ended up in Queens of the Stone Age. If you actually have to have talent to do Caius. I was doing more of like I could do like Otis, or like I could do like like the third tier, like generic Doom guy, you know what I mean? Like Rise Up of the Underworld, Kyan. The guitar. Meanwhile, someone's going to actually like tune in and be like, try and come in for the Let's Tear Down the Insanity of the Pathfinder Remaster and its connection to D&D 3.5. And I'll be, well, actually, no one showed up to the live chat, so that's why we ended up with the acoustic guitar inventing. If there's pastel goth, what is the equivalent of that to like desert metal? Oh, by the way, Metallica released a record 2 weeks ago that no one gave a shit about. Did you know that Metallica came out with a new record? What tuning says Spawn of Caius? I'm Monty Cook, and I tell you, like, I feel like my soul is taking me in this direction because if I actually start talking about the hypocrisy in the tabletop role playing game community, I'll start talking from the voice that was going on inside my head and the voice that was going on inside my car when I was listening to these people talk. And I'll start saying like very ugly things about people in it's just know this. If you can say to yourself, if WotC did it, if Wizards of the Coast did it, would you be cool with it? And if the answer is no, then you can't be cool with it when Pazio does it. The only reason Pazio are doing this, you have a whole bunch, they know that a whole bunch of kids already just bought, and they were encouraged to buy a whole bunch of Pathfinder books based on the argument that, oh, you know, we're not like Wizards of the Coast, we won't screw you. And then the minute those kids bought the book, those guys turned around and said, oh, well, actually, it's a gal. Lisa Stevens was like, actually, well, you know what we would really like to do is that now is the actual opportunity. Because what's happening is that like Dungeons and Dragons are souping up to like release their new virtual tabletop and go out and do like new shit. And so like Pazio are like, oh, well, now actually is the time we want to strike while the iron's hot and like, you know, do our thing. So now we're going to do this thing that totally goes away from the SRD, totally goes away and separates all ties from Dungeons and Dragons. Meanwhile, when you actually do that, gone is your opportunity, Pathfinder, to do this. Here's look, this is what makes Pathfinder Pathfinder and does the whole shtickety stew. Here's Pathfinder. Oh wait, let me get this. This is the first one. This is what makes this is Pathfinder's Rosetta Stone. So no matter what you do, look, first of all, here's the thing. If I'm the ghost of Gary Gygax and I'm haunting Jason, right, up his asshole, right, I'm thinking like, oh, you whatever you want to do, you do. Whatever. I'm not saying that Gary Gygax is holding on to shit. I'm not saying like you should care, whatever. But if I was, I'd be like this. I'm Gary Gygax, and when I think back on what I did first, it's just my ass. It's me, 1973, 74, going, how are we going to do this? Maybe Arneson was involved. Actually, fuck that guy. Whatever. Whatever the ghost of Gary says, that's his point of view. It is what it is. But he's going to say to Jason, he's going to say, Jason, when you go back in your final days and you haunt whatever, you're going to say, I'm Jason. When I go back and look at my first big thing that I did, it's going to be this game is dedicated to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, based on the original role-playing game rules designed by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, and inspired by the third edition of the game designed by Monty Cook, Jonathan Tweet, Skip Williams, Richard Baker, and Peter Atkinson. I've seen Jonathan Tweet on film, and he's as impressive as Monty. I like Monty Cook better because Monty Cook is like if Mr. Peabody came to life and or a benign, like lawful neutral or lawful good Mr. Burns. That's literally Monty Cook. Okay. Jonathan Tweet is like as if like it's just like a guy standing in line. Like it's like honestly, he's like generic guy, whatever. Skip Williams, I don't know. I've never been able to track that guy down. I don't know what the deal with him is. But like that's it. Like this game is Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. It starts with a forward by Monty Cook telling a story about him in regards to Dungeons & Dragons. Like this is the first thing that Pathfinder is. Its story starts with Dungeons & Dragons. So it can do, we got to separate ourselves from the SRD. We got to separate ourselves from the rule set, whatever. What are you trying to separate yourself from? Your fucking history? That's like a guy, like, look, you can hate your father, right? You can be fucking fucked up about like whatever happened with you and your father in your history. But he's still your fucking father. And whatever history went down with you and your dad, that shit went down. So do whatever you want to do in regards to whatever you want to do, like dealing with the economic future, but like don't change your game and how people have to enjoy your game, like having to do stupid shit like getting rid of alignment because you have to get rid of a fucking SRD because of fucking business. Because if you do that, you're not a creative designer. You're not a game designer. You're a fucking businessman. But that's not a fucking crime either. Making a fucking business deal, like Gary Gygax made business fucking deals. Dave Arneson made a business deal and said, fucking, I did what I did. I'm fucking fine. Peace. I'm going to play with my dudes and I don't give a shit about anything else. Fuck your mother. Right? That's apparently him. That was his story. Other than I give a shit about coming up every once in a while being like, I want to look at books and make sure you're paying me. Pay me. I don't, you're a fan of what? Get out of my way. I'm just here to get paid. Whatever. But if you're going to tell people that you're in for the game or you're in for the community, especially when a whole bunch of people bought your books predicated on you're not like assholes, you're not like the other guy, then don't be assholes. Don't be like the other guys. You can be Rage Against the Machine and throw a fucking gig that people paid money for by getting up there and painting PMRC on your fucking shirts like idiots. Meanwhile, Fugazi were on fucking tour playing $8 shows, $5 shows night after night, every day, that fucking tour. $5 shows, all ages, every fucking one down the line. Not getting paid $100,000, whatever, to do nothing. Not being paid by a major record label company, but calling yourselves Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. Roll for combat, roll for combat, roll for combat. I can change anybody's fucking mind. All these fucking people. These fucking people, the Matt Mercers or whatever, all those people making whatever money they're making on the size of their YouTube channels, these 5th edition people on the second tier, whatever, their morals. The first tier of the alternative TTRPG people are so fucking slimy, it's not even fucking funny. That Glickner guy from Roll for Combat, I think he's fucking slimy. I don't like him. That's a statement of personal opinion. I feel like I could roll his stream. If I rolled his stream, I would be doing like classic CW Chanter. It was pathetic. Like I was originally, when I was going to do this stream talking about tearing down the insanity of the Pathfinder remaster and its connection to D&D 3.5, I was going to establish the Twain nostalgia loop. Then I was going to run the Pathfinder live stream of them. I guess it was Jason Bullman and like one of his cohorts, like talking about the remaster, like how stupid that was, and just like, I'd probably do that. Because if I do that, that'll be a little bit more sensible than if I do the Roll for Combat one, which really almost pissed me. Like I thought I was going to jump through the screen. We say hello to Gerald M. Yates. I apologize. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tear there. I apologize. So let's see if I can watch this fair use. Let me do this. Hold on. Let's see if I can bring it up. And what we'll do is, Jesus, came up with the DSP video. Oh my gosh. Here we go. History. Here we go. Let me do this. Okay. Let's see if I got headphones so I can not do it with feedback. No, I apologize. I know I kind of had a stream of consciousness moment there, but decided to come back into focus because I guess I thought to myself that maybe it was the better idea to not cover the subject because that it would just go into a negative headspace. We say hello to Jilly Beans. But then what I'm thinking is know that if I now know that there's that second alternative video that I could watch that would really drive me crazy. So if we just watch, these are the guys from Pathfinder, including Jason Bullman. If I can avoid making fun of Jason Bullman's hair, I won't. I basically just maybe I did. Maybe if I popped the cork just then. Maybe if I've just popped the cork by already kind of tipping my hat that I have less than appreciation for Jason Bullman's hair. This not for infringement of Pathfinder.
Pazio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special Paizo Pathfinder stream.
This is a stream, obviously, by Paizo, who are the company that published Pathfinder. This is Jason Bullman appearing on to my screen's left, director of game design, and someone named, he'll introduce him. And really, I mean, the purpose of this is fair use. It's an hour-long video. I don't know if we have to watch the whole hour. I've watched it, and basically my summation is going to be the changes are not necessary. And this is exactly 3.5. I've already, established, tried to establish, either you accept my argument or not, that, what is so interesting about, the nostalgia loops and the timeline, connections, and how these line up so perfectly with Dungeons & Dragons 3.0 and 3.5 timeline, and what that might portend or, for the future or whatever, or just how interesting that is. But just like Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, it was alleged to be a cash grab. Why is Paizo doing this now? I argue they don't need to. They are doing this. This benefits them. This benefits their copyright. This benefits them in establishing the ORC open licensing agreement for their benefit. Anyone wants to argue that's for some sort of universal benefit, go fuck your mother. It's for their benefit. And the changes are all cosmetic. And one of the biggest changes, they're getting rid of the alignment system. Then, that silly notion of the difference between good and evil mattering, the difference between chaos and lawfulness and neutrality mattering. Oh, not that it's going to, don't worry, it's not going to affect anybody's game or the system at all, even though this system is intimately linked to an underlying mythology and cosmology that includes many gods and many dragons that interface directly, and many classes that interface directly with the alignment system, good and evil, whether your god is, lawful, neutral. No, I'm an idiot, right? Oh, don't worry. No significant. That's not going to affect anything at all. It's not going to affect anything at all. Getting rid of alignment. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck your mother.
Today, we thought we'd go live to chat with all of you about the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster project. But before we get too far into that, I want to introduce my...
Okay, number one, everything tells a story, and I tell a story too. No one is different or exceptional from this. But I just want to say, for men, the eternal golfer look, the short-sleeved polo shirt is there's that line in the Rush song. If you fail to make a choice, you still have made, it's like if you fail to make a choice, you still have made a choice. You know what I mean? It's the I'm at work, I'm not at work, I'm a cool guy. I hate it. It's just like, and how much product can one man utilize? Do you know what I mean? This man is on a one-man mission to save Dippity Doo.
Co-host for this here chat, Logan, take it away.
Hi.
Logan what? I wanted to know. I want to know your pronouns. No. I want to pronounce his last name. That was a joke. I like the song. I was making fun of the song. I'm all over the place. Everywhere.
I'm Logan Bonner. I'm the Pathfinder RPG lead designer.
It's Bonner. I'm all over the place. Everywhere.
I'm Logan Bonner.
literally happened. That was me. I hit the fast forward button, which turned into my own video, which was a lucky one. Could you imagine? That could have, we could have had one of those, and now I got to start from the beginning. That's my punishment. You know what we could have had? We could have had one of those, we could have had one of those Corey Good moments where he's like caught like biting his nails. My voiceover comes over. It could have been like, like, it could have been someone else.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to
like,
a special Paizo Pathfinder stream. Today, we thought we'd go live to chat with all of you about the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster project. But before we get too far into that, I want to introduce my co-host for this here chat. Logan, take it away.
Logan Bonner.
Hi, I'm Logan Bonner. I'm the Pathfinder RPG lead designer, and I'm doing a lot of the spearheading of this project and making sure everything,
I just want to say also too, like this is Pazio. They have 26.4 thousand subscribers, right? I'll subscribe. All notifications. Okay. 473 likes, 6.7 thousand views for a debut on April 26, 2023. This is on their friggin', it's an hour-long video announcing the Pathfinder. Chat replay is disabled for this premiere. I wonder why. Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster. Why is the chat replay disabled? You got to be shitting me. I didn't even see that before. That's not a good look. Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster project. Dude, it's got this. Oh, they're going to take over. Dude, 6.7 thousand views 2 days ago. You don't want me to go over and watch what if you're going to suggest that I'm a WotC fanboy, you can eat my starfish. Eat my starfish raw. Eat it all night long. And that's a reference to an actual starfish. I have one at home. It's plastic. I would not invite you to do anything to a live animal. That animal equal, that would be uncalled for. I wouldn't traumatize you. I wouldn't want to traumatize the starfish. But if you want to do something with a toy, cancel me now. I'm like the Leonardo DiCaprio of people trying to get canceled. Good luck.
interconnects and gets done the right way.
Unfortunately, in my escape maneuvers, I forget what I was originally talking about in the first place. That's like that's my downfall. But don't worry, like I'll come back to it. Unless someone can remind me. Between the two of you, I got nothing.
Logan is our expert on the remaster project. He is deep in the reads on all of the things that we are doing to make an exciting new remaster of the Pathfinder core.
There's going to be nothing. What's exciting? What's exciting about nothing? I want
to remind folks here that we are also joined in chat by Mark Moreland, who will be doing moderation for us, and will be taking your questions and writing them down and passing them to us. I am Jason Bowman. I'm the director of game design and kind of the leader of the rules and lore team, which is spearheading a lot of the remaster work. And
again,
today
fair
we
use,
thought we'd go live to chat with all of you about the remaster, what it is,
If I were to show you embarrass these guys by showing you the Wizard, that was my original thought, the Wizards of the Coast Unearthed Arcana thing, recent thing that was like contemporaneous with this. The hundreds of thousands of views, with whatever number of views, it's far more than this, and the production values. Now I know this is supposed to be a spur of the moment, spontaneous stream, but even still, and I'm not saying that having more money is makes a person better or worse. I'm saying when you're the number 2, and you're up there in these leagues, yeah. Look at Matt Mercer's announcement with his like 4/20 2023 our first little press conference thing. Look at the production values on that thing. And I'm not saying that this is supposed to be anywhere near that sort of thing. I know it's a spontaneous Twitch stream. But even at that level of a spontaneous Twitch stream, and the views, it bespeaks the actual size of the community that's engaged here. And the fact that the chat replay is disabled, I think, says something about what might have been the response of what's actually going on. But I'm going to show it. I was going to say, if I played this other video by certain people, because remember, what I'm saying is that there are people that are deceiving people, and we're telling you this stuff because really what Wizards are doing is so disgusting and uncalled for, and what they're doing is destroying things. And what really was happening is that people saw the opportunity to really, while Wizards of the Coast was experiencing problems with the community base and problems with a transfer of things, and there were changes happening in communities, and in community connections said, we're going to fuck around, we're going to dice around, and we're going to change the conversation, and we're going to control the conversation, and we're going to utilize this energy to get involved in this conversation to generate what? Money, profits, and views. And is that okay? Do the ends always justify the means? I don't agree with that. I don't think it's okay to say, oh, well, we're just talking about things, so it's intellectual property law, but I don't know much about intellectual property law, but I am a lawyer, so I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. Why are you doing that? You're doing that because it's your opportunity to have views. So don't miss that opportunity, even though you know you're not really adding much value to the conversation. You could be doing a whole lot of harm. Really, the best thing you do to people is say, what do you care about copyrights or whatever? You show up at the store, or you show up at the online place. What is for sale? What's available? What's being distributed? What's around? You give a shit about the rule system? The rule system's based on? Oh, they want this much of the profit. They want that much of the profit. They're doing this. They're doing that. You think Pathfinder is? What do you think? You think Pathfinder is a communist organization that's sharing things 50-50 with their artists? I didn't know that. If I'm wrong and they're doing that, I guess I'll blow Bullman and I'll log in Bonner.
Isn't, and kind of go through what all of the products are going to be, kind of give you some insight into what this remaster is going to look like, and talk about how you can use it in your games. So I want to start off
use as a footstool.
Talking kind of broadly, Logan, about the remaster. I want to start off by just talking about what
completely
the remaster is. What's the point? What's our goals here?
What's our goals, honestly? Okay.
So there are a couple of the primary kind of impetus behind this. One is to switch over to the orc license, and Indar.
I appreciate that. That's honest. Switch over to the orc license, and they said that first. Kids, they said that first. Primary, switch over to the orc license. What does that have the fuck to do with you as a player? Answer, 100% jack shit. And if you're saying it's got anything to do with you, you're jacking up your own opinion of yourself and trying to say, well, my purchases actually matter, and the decisions I make as a consumer, the end all effect. Come on. The amount of how much do you go on drive through RPG? Pay what you want, and what you want is oh, it's just me. Fucking mother.
Dependability on the OGL and the various legal entanglements that can cause. And
what legal entanglements? No one got sued. No one got hurt except WotC, who not only bootstrapped and strengthened that license, but made 5th edition Creative Commons. What? What legal problems? What legal problems? What legal problems? There were no legal problems except me having an almost heart attack because two dumbass lawyers, one from Canada, not the 51st state in the union, no such fucking thing, and one who I guarantee you hasn't actually practiced law in how many fucking years? And never practiced intellectual property law. All of a sudden, they're talking about intellectual property law. Why? It's irresponsible. And if I say that, you shouldn't do irresponsible things. Am I being an asshole to you, or am I being nice to you? I'm being nice to you. If I say, hi, I'm this guy. I got elf hair, and I'm dancing near traffic. Look at me dancing near traffic with my elf hair. I'm going to say, hey, you, the elf hair. Don't dance near traffic. I'm like, go over. I might even go over you. I'm touching you rough. Look at me. Come over here. Get over here. Yeah. Get over here. You, with the elf hair, go over. You're dancing near traffic. What are you talking about this for? Who gives a gosh darn what you think? If what you practice is not intellectual property law, you're on YouTube going out across the nations. You share your legal opinions at a party. It's one thing. You're going out there. Now, all of a sudden, you're just an intellectual property expert overnight. Read the cases the night before. That's how it works. Don't dance near traffic, I say, not because I don't like you, but because I do like you. Child of God, child of goddess, get out of the traffic. Oi!
And go to a license that is more friendly and independent. And we were, looking at this and kind of saw that our rules are brand new. The text is brand new. So if we wanted to get away from that,
because you did that intentionally to get away from this. They act as though that the one thing has nothing to do with the other. Oh my God.
Most of the changes are relatively small or superficial.
Because you just changed it just enough to get away with not getting sued post calling it a completely different product and not using the SRD. And you're having this conversation in front of people like a dancing snake. It's incredible.
And this was a good chance to make some of those changes. The other,
but I do appreciate the honesty. I wonder if people hear it.
Impetus is we've heard time and again, people want, a smaller rule book. They want to be able to, kind of get into the game with just the player stuff or have all the GM stuff in one place. And so that's part of this too, is getting people a product that is a little lighter, a little easier to carry with you to your game sessions. And
do you hear what he just said? Here's the deal. Okay. I told you that what people used to like was that the core rule book was the player's manual, and it was basically everything in one book. And he's saying, oh, people wanted something smaller, but he's acting like they're making this smaller, but they're not. They're making this into two different books. They're making this into they're taking the core rule book and they're taking it into a player's handbook and a DM's guide, right? Instead of it just being one thing, they're turning it into two things and say, oh, but it's great, it's going to be smaller, so there's going to be less things that you're carrying into your game session. Only if you were just a player who hated to, you had to get rid of this. Like they're going to be charging you so much less for like you had to save that much money, so it's going to be that much greater. You're getting oh no, we're doing this for you. We're going to cut off one of your legs, but it's be good. Great. Think of how much you'll save in shoes. You'll only have to buy one shoe. That's like a 50% saving for the rest of your life. You'd be stupid to keep both legs.
And has, for the GM, have all that reference in a more easily referenced spot.
Because he'll just have one book too. Because he'll have no need for the player's material, right? Why would the DM GM need any player's material? Did I say DM? Oh, no.
And, those are kind of the main reasons we started doing this. As we went through the process, we also had a lot of other room for improvement. So, for example,
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
The chat went great strides in how we present information and how we tabulate books so they can be referenced easily. So there's a lot of stuff where it's just going to be a lot easier to use the books and a lot friendlier for folks.
Yeah, being behind the scenes, right? I'm super excited for a lot of these kind of little quality of life improvements. They're just little things that are like, we just didn't think about it or didn't have the foresight to see how people were going to use the book 4 years ago.
We didn't have the insight to see how people would use the book 4 years ago. Remember, this is why, remember, 10 years used to be the standard between games editions. Now, until 3.5, on the 20-year nostalgia loop, this quality of life, you're going to be so much happier that we're coming back to you just after you, because remember, I kept on saying to you, these guys were telling you, what, see your dick cheese, what, see your dick cheese. Pazio would never do that to you. Get involved with Pazio. Get involved with Pazio second edition. Yeah. Pazio, so we all buy second edition. Woo! And then they buy Pazio second edition. They say, oh, man, you bought all those second edition books, and we even did a second printing of them. But now that we think about it, we should have thought of this 4 years ago. But we did the two books together, one big thing that you bought once. But now you're probably all hurting your backs, and we're all complaining, going to the sessions with a big book. Here's what we're going to do. Because we have to, we're also going to just cut the books in half, make you buy them again. Also, you have to buy the monster books again. Ooh, also, we're getting rid of alignment. Spoiler alert.
And I think that speaks to a lot of some of the changes and additions that are happening. Is it comes from 4 years of playing and loving this game and giving us a chance to incorporate all of the errata in one solid place and kind of consolidate a lot of text that was kind of in some different spaces, right? You know, we had fighter feats in the core rulebook and fighter feats in the APG, and now we can kind of bring those together in one central location.
Yeah. There were also a lot of decisions we made early on that were kind of legacy decisions. It was like, well, if we change this, is it going to look too different? I think a really good example of that, I'm going to do a light spoiler here, Jason, is spelled level, a term that has confused people for decades because level means multiple different things. And so we can change that now, and because we kind of kept it for legacy originally. So that'll be really nice.
You kept it for legacy? Well, that's, I mean, well,
it allows for kind of a cleaner onboarding and understanding. You don't have,
it's whatever. I mean, whatever you call it, it's a choice of a word. I mean, you could have done it at any point. It gets you further away from the SRD, but this is, like I'm saying, like, this is what requires you. These are the quality of life decisions. If this is what people are leading with to justify this being a different edition, then you got a problem. And I, on this channel, have testified because I am reviewing and looking at this material and reviewing it closely in real time. Because in 2023, because of being the student of this nostalgia loop, have a vested interest in wanting to know what was happening in 2000 and 2003. And in that, between that period, and what's interesting in what's happening in this hobby. So I'm looking at, and I was looking at the player's handbook from 2000. I was looking at in 2003 with fresh eyes at the 3.5, handbook, and saying, this is the same fucking book. And then going online and doing the research and saying, what is the difference? And finding out the difference is there was a reason why people came away and said, our takeaway is it's kind of a cash grab, because there are changes, there are differences, there are things made, things that happen. You can't say that they didn't do anything. But at the same time, if you had bought books 1, 2, and 3, especially if you had bought books 1, 2, and 3 recently, and then you were told that you had to buy books 1, 2, and 3 again to be compliant with the table or to be compliant with the community or whatever, you might feel like you got fucked.
To learn that level for spell only goes to 10, but level for character goes to 20.
And sometimes you have to compare them and do this math. It's a little easier if they have different names.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we've kind of talked about what this is, right? You know, we're making.
Now, I might not, because I'm realizing that I'm 4 minutes and
compatible,
30
which means
seconds
kind
into
of stripping away
them,
some things that
I
come
might
from
not
the
be
old
able to
SRD.
do this because this might turn to be too
but,
epic.
you know, we're still keeping the core of the game exactly the same. So that's a good segue into talking into what this remaster isn't. Because I know a lot of folks out there have a lot of questions about, you know, whether or not it's this or that. So what isn't this remaster?
What isn't it?
Well, it's going to play pretty much the same, you know, 99% of the time.
Okay. So if it's going to play the same 99.9% of the time, then what the fuck is it? And why the fuck are you telling people that just bought your goddamn book on the argument that you weren't like WotC and you weren't going to fuck them up the butt, that you're going to tell them to buy, and then you're going to say, oh, don't worry about it. It's the same thing. You da-da-da-da-da-da. But, okay.
Like the rules of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's using the same rules. Like I said, there's a few things we changed for streamlining or clarity, but most of those, you know, is just to make it run a little more smoothly.
What the thing they actually change, they're going to change something big, and if people don't think that it's big and they think that I'm the only guy that thinks that it's big, I think that that's a problem. And probably what's crazy about it is this. I'm as liberal as get the fuck out of town, people. I'm as liberal as it fucking comes. Trust me. But one thing I guarantee you, if you're a fan of Jordan B. Peterson and you are coochie crunching okay with what these guys are eventually going to say regarding what change they made, and I'm going to tell you why they made it. And there's no argument to say that they made it for any other reason. If you're a fan of Jordan B. Peterson and you give these mothers a pass and you go crazy about WotC or woke or transgender fano, crazy liberal, libtard, whatever's, then you're hypocritical as all get the fuck out.
So we say that this isn't a new edition because pretty much everything we printed is going to work just fine under it. There are going to be a couple things where it's like, oh, this feat says something counts spell level. I need to count spell rank, right? I think that's a great example where it's like,
they're going to say it's like what the thing that they changed that they think is not a big deal is going to be a tremendous actual big fucking deal, I think.
As long as you kind of understand it.
Not from any sort of like outside the box morality clause, any sort of fuck way. Because I think actually mechanically in the games, I think people are not even thinking about how it's going to actually play out, but whatever.
That term change, that's a pretty, that still functions just fine.
Logan,
so there's a lot of stuff like that.
You just said the name. You didn't say it before, but you just said it. I wonder if anyone caught it.
We should have time-stamped it.
Spoilers galore.
Yeah.
No, I think that is an important point, though, to really kind of emphasize, right? If you sit down and you're used to having 3 actions, you're used to rolling initiative via perception, or maybe sometimes stealth, or maybe sometimes something else. You're used to 4 degrees of success and proficiency. None of that is changing. It's all exactly the same.
I think it's also important to note that some of these things that we're removing for OGL reasons also still work fine. If you have the first bestiary and it has a monster that we didn't put in Monster Core, you can just use that monster. If you designed a monster, 2 years ago, you can still use that monster. Similar with spells and items, like all that stuff still functions.
So you've changed nothing.
Yeah, I think going forward as we kind of start talking about some of the other books that are in the line.
Nothing has changed mechanically to the game. Here. You've changed nothing mechanically to the game. Then what have you done? Then why is there a 2.5 remastered project? And why are there changes? And why are you having this announcement as if you've done something when you're telling us that you've done nothing? But you've clearly done something. And you've clearly changed things. And you've changed them to do a very specific thing that you've already addressed and you've already been honest about. And it's purely fucking business. It's pure business. It's got nothing to do with the game, serving the community, which is exactly the things that they said that WotC were dick cheeses for doing. WotC are corporate fuckbags who don't care about the game and don't care about the community and only make decisions for money and for profit and for business. And why did Pazzo make all these decisions. They made the decisions to get away from the OGL. They had to. Why? What had to? What happened? What bad happened? Like I said, nothing bad happened for anyone except Wizards of the Coast, who ended up having to give away everything in the form of 5th edition going into the Creative Commons and the original licenses getting bootstrapped. Your mother.
And kind of chat about what's in them, what you can expect to find. And at the end, we'll open it up for some Q&A, just so everyone has that in their head. That'll come at the end.
I'm only 7 minutes into their bullshit.
There is
Jesus
content that
Christ.
isn't going to quite make the cut into the remaster, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It still works just
because these guys are just flubbing.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like there are a small number of exceptions to those. Like we've tried to minimize that kind of thing. But like we said, alignment's going away. So a lot of
there you go, you fucking fuck. There you go. Alignment's going away. Look at this guy. Here's where the Bonner goes, Logan. You're going to see this guy. Look at him right now. If you're a fan of Jordan B. Peterson and you think it's coochie crunch that these guys are getting rid of alignment, the line between good and evil, lawful, neutral, chaos and disorder and order and reason. Not saying I choose to play one side of the coin or the other all the time. Can any of us? But if you think that it's okay to have worlds that are defined by there is no distinction between anything, because why? Because there's no distinction between anything. That's what Jason Bullman believes as a creative person, as an artist, as a director, as a game designer, as a human. Or is that something that he has to do and has to make happen because to do otherwise is to, under legal advisement, come dangerously close to being too close to what? Dungeons and Dragons, and therefore risking some sort of litigation and lawsuit. So let's get rid of and create a virtual world for people and children to play in that doesn't make distinctions between good and evil, right and wrong, chaos and order. Why? Because of corporate. But they're different than WotC. And listen, folks, no one's going to watch this video. No one's going to comment on this video. Clip this video if I say anything that you think is pertinent or important to this TTRPG community. If you give a shit about this TTRPG community, am I the only person saying this? Or are you going to let people continue to be brainwashed by just what? Look at Logan about to be like, perp walked and to be made like those people that had to like, for Saddam Hussein made those like people like shoot their own comrades. Watch this. Kill alignment.
But there is content that isn't going to quite make the cut into the remaster, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It still works just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to clarify, like there are a small number of exceptions to those. Like we've tried to minimize that kind of thing. But like we said, alignment's going away. So a lot of stuff that's dependent on alignment is going to either get a revised version to work with what we've replaced that with, or is going to not function anymore, and you'll need to pick something else. And if you want to fully use the new rules exactly.
And I think that's a great segue into kind of looking at these books. So I want to start off by kind of taking a look at the player core book. Now, this is going to be one of the first books that
I'm going to leave it there at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. If it took me this long to get through 7 minutes and 40 seconds, I'm going to leave it there because these motherfuckers got rid of alignment. And the next thing they're going to tell you, the only significant thing that they got rid of is they got rid of keeping the ability scores and then just keeping the modifiers. If you don't care about tabletop role-playing games and you're just watching me because you like to watch me cut loose or go crazy or get pissed off about unimportant things, let me put that in context. I feel like I mentioned the new Metallica record and then I lost everyone in the live chat because they all went to listen to the new Metallica record. honestly, I reached this like magic hour where people were like, oh no, we're out. Okay, folks. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you, oh wait, folks. Everything I said was my personal opinion, but my personal opinion, I believe, is, well, look, what can I tell you? It's motivated by, if sincerity has its own value, let the value lie there. From the 98 Tarot, from the 1998 Cosmic Tarot. So a Tarot card that will be from the same era as that 1997 conversation that Monty Cook remembers, that's recorded in the first core rulebook from Pathfinder from like 2010 or whatever. And then from the Egyptian Tarot, we'll pull a card because we talked so much about 2003, and we have a jumper. We have a card that jumps right out from 2003, the year of the 3.5 edition. I'm still shuffling the cards, and another one jumps out. I must have instinctively known that we needed 2 cards there. So we got a 3-card spread. 1 from one, 2 from the other. Just the way that it comes out that way. From the Cosmic Tarot, the Ace of Pentacles. Ain't that the truth, baby? The Ace of Pentacles, the root of all, the root of the suit of coins. It is the material matter. And it is at play in the situations of the earth. And this is life on earth. It is an aspect of our patterns. If we look at the ants at the anthill, if we look at the bees around the hive, if we look at us around the corporations, around the games, around the players, we'll see resources, food, building. It all takes money, honey. You got to be in it to win it. 2 cards from 2003. I turn them over both at once, and I've got the 4 of Pentacles. Got 2 4s. This is very interesting. Okay. We got the 4 of Pentacles. Remember, I felt spontaneously the need, the drive to take 2 cards at once, or 2 cards from this deck, and we got these 2 very mirrored cards. So this is very interesting because they're kind of mirrors of each other in a very interesting way. The spiritual and the physical manifest nature, the more feminine energy, the more receptive. But we can think of this as being basically the physical and the spiritual aspects of this number 4. You know, if we think of a box, a container, there's a lot of different things that you can put in a container. There's things that go good in a container, like a whole bunch of books. Put a whole bunch of books in a box. You can leave them there for put them in books in a box in an attic. You can set them there and forget about it, right? But if you leave a water in a box for too long, right? Here we got the 4 of Cups here. Cups, the suit of emotions. Emotions, cups, also associated with the element of water. Water's got to flow. If you leave water in a box too long, it's going to go stagnant, or it might just evaporate away. If you just leave water in a box and then just put it in the attic and leave it, you might come back and it's just gone. It might be good to leave a box out to catch the rain. It might be good to put water in a glass, a container, for a while, to hold on to it, to meditate for a minute, to have it there to drink. But you can't hold on to it for too long. Same thing with the material nature. We have the 4 of coins here. We have that Ace of coins. We meditated upon the coins as the root of, talking about money. Well, just like that water energy, money might be good hanging around for a while, but too long, it might have just as bad effects. It might evaporate, it might go stagnant, or it might drive you crazy, or it might go to ruin. It may be that things have to flow there too. But 4 is also a number of order. So having a box to keep your money in does make sense. Just don't let it be everything. And know that, just like water, it's got to continue to flow. And just like that metaphor, I will continue to flow to the end of this video. So I know I may have gotten a little bit high energy, but hopefully not not so much. And that's, that was, my fear. And that is sometimes my fear with going these, cover other materials or cover some of these issues. Like, maybe it's better if I keep to the, talking about the, meta RPG, or talking about, reviewing the materials, or talking about the materials, talking about ideas about the materials, rather than talking about, the controversies and the problems. Because it's like, when we talk about the people and the problems, that's when the energy gets dicey, and then we start to get aggressive, and then we start to go into the negative territory, where it might be fun and the energy might be exciting, but it may not be, the best of all possible worlds. I don't know. That might be my takeaway for the evening. We'll see where we go with it. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, then somebody just did, and that somebody is Monty, history, and drawing a line between good and evil.